Many imagine blacksmiths of the early Middle Ages as muscular heroes hammering out legendary swords for noble knights in clean workshops respected by all. Nothing could be further from the truth. The reality of becoming a blacksmith in 800 AD was starting as a terrified child, ripped from your family at age 8, working 16 brutal hours a day in scorching heat where one mistake meant burns that scarred you for life, if you survived at all. Let's discover what it was really like to wake up as a blacksmith in the time of Charlemagne, when most apprentices never lived to become masters. So yeah, if these stories help you sleep, like or subscribe would be cool. Also drop where you're listening from and the time. I check the comments and it's crazy seeing people from like Australia and Norway on the same video. Alright, let's head back to 800 AD. Trust me, it's going to be quite a ride, but first, get comfortable. Seriously, adjust those pillows, pull up that blanket, because where we're going, you're going to want to be cozy. So congratulations, you just woke up in early medieval Europe around the year 800, but it's not like waking up in your soft, warm bed right now. Your eyes snap open in panic on a pile of dirty straw that serves as your mattress, thrown haphazardly in the corner of a smoky workshop. Your back aches from yesterday's labour, and the thin wool blanket barely kept out the night's chill. There's no gentle morning alarm here, just the deafening clang of metal that jolts you upright, your heart racing. You're 8 years old, just 8, and yesterday your father handed you over to the local blacksmith as an apprentice. Be grateful, he told you, his calloused farmer's hands gripping your shoulders. Most boys will never have this chance. You'll learn a trade. You'll never starve. But right now, huddled in the corner of this strange place, staring at the massive bearded man already hammering at the forge, you're not feeling particularly grateful. You're terrified. The workshop is a simple wooden structure with a thatch roof, one side open to let out the smoke from the forge. It's barely dawn, but the fire is already roaring. The heat hits you in waves, making your eyes water. The smell is overwhelming. Burning charcoal, hot metal, sweat, and something acrid you can't identify yet. This is now your home for the next 7 years, at least. Your new master glances your way. Boy, stop lazing about. Get over here and work the bellows. You scramble to your feet, nearly tripping in your haste. You've seen the bellows before, large leather contraptions that pump air into the forge to keep the fire hot, but you've never actually used one. The leather handles are worn smooth from years of use, and when you grab them, they're slick with the sweat of countless apprentices before you. Pump harder, the blacksmith barks, not even looking at you. Fire's too cool for forging. You throw your entire body weight into pulling the bellows, but you're small and the resistance is surprising. Within minutes, your arms burn with exertion. Within an hour, they feel like they might fall off, but you don't dare stop. You've heard stories of apprentices who were beaten for less. The forge grows hotter, the flames leaping higher, sweat pours down your face, your thin linen tunic sticking to your back. The blacksmith, seemingly unaffected by the heat, pulls a glowing rod of iron from the fire with long metal tongs. He places it on the anvil, a massive block of iron mounted on a tree stump, and begins to hammer. The sound is deafening. Each strike sends sparks flying in all directions. One lands on your arm, burning a tiny hole in your skin before you can brush it away. You bite back a cry. The blacksmith wouldn't tolerate weakness. Boy, water bucket now. You look around frantically, spotting a wooden bucket near the door. You run to grab it, the weight nearly toppling you as you bring it to the master. He plunges the red-hot metal into the water, creating a cloud of steam that engulfs your face, momentarily blinding you. The hiss is like an angry demon. Too slow, he grunts. You'll learn to be faster or you'll burn. This is just the first hour of your first day. As the morning progresses, you learn that working the bellows is just one of your many duties. You're to fetch water, haul charcoal, sweep the shop, run errands, and anything else the master demands. You're the lowest creature in this world, barely above the rats that scurry along the edges of the workshop. By midday, your stomach growls painfully. In your village, you'd be eating bread and cheese with your family by now. Here, you wait until the master decides it's time to eat. When he finally puts down his hammer and nods toward a small wooden table, you nearly collapse with relief. The meal is simple. A chunk of dark bread, a small piece of hard cheese, and a cup of thin ale. Not water, mind you. Water could make you sick. Even children drank ale in 800 AD. Weak, but still ale. The food disappears too quickly, barely taking the edge off your hunger. The master eats twice as much, watching you with calculating eyes. "Strong enough arms?" he asks, his first direct question to you. "Yes, master," you lie, your arms trembling with exhaustion. He snorts, clearly seeing through you. "They'll get stronger or you'll fail. Most do." That's when you notice another boy, perhaps 12, emerging from the back of the shop. His arms are corded with lean muscle, his face smudged with soot. He looks at you with a mixture of pity and contempt. "This is Einhard," the master says. "Been with me 4 years. He'll show you what to do when I'm not around." Einhard doesn't smile or greet you. 4 years ago, he was in your position. Now he's halfway through his apprenticeship with skills you can only dream of. But he's still just an apprentice, still years away from being allowed to actually create anything of value. "Come on," Einhard says, his voice surprisingly deep for his age. "We need more charcoal." You follow him outside to a small shed behind the workshop. Inside are stacks of charcoal, the fuel that keeps the forge burning hot enough to work iron. Charcoal burns hotter than wood, hot enough to make metal malleable. "Fill this," Einhard hands you a leather sack. "Don't drop any." Master counts it. The charcoal is lighter than you expected, but filthy. Within seconds, your hands are black. You'll eventually learn that you're never truly clean as a blacksmith's apprentice. The soot gets everywhere, under your nails, in the creases of your skin, even in your ears and nostrils. At night, you'll blow your nose and the rag will come away black. How long until I get to make something?" you ask Einhard as you struggle with the sack. He laughs, a short, harsh sound. "Years. I just started learning basic hammering last winter. For now, you just work and watch and try not to get burned too badly." "Have you been burned?" In answer, Einhard rolls up his sleeve, revealing a patchwork of small, round scars up his forearm. "Sparks," he says simply. "You'll have your own collection soon enough." Back in the workshop, the master is hammering again, shaping what appears to be a simple farm tool, perhaps a hoe blade. Nothing glamorous or knightly here. Most of a blacksmith's work in a small village is creating and repairing everyday items. Pots, tools, nails, hinges, wagon parts. You watch, fascinated despite your exhaustion, as the master transforms the glowing metal with precise hammer blows. It seems like magic, the way the unyielding iron becomes as workable as clay when hot enough. "Don't just stand there," the master growls, bellows. And so it goes. Hour after hour, your job is to keep the fire hot, fetch tools, sweep up metal filings, and stay out of the way. By the time the sun begins to set, every muscle in your body screams with pain. Your lungs burn from the smoke, your eyes sting, and your hands are covered in small burns and cuts. The master finally steps back from the anvil, stretching his massive back. "Enough for today," he says. "Clean up and get some sleep. Dawn comes early." Einhard shows you how to bank the forge fire, not extinguishing it completely, but covering it with ashes, so it can be easily restarted in the morning. The workshop must be swept clean, tools put away in their proper places, the water bucket refilled for tomorrow. Only then are you allowed to collapse onto your straw pile. Your stomach rumbles again. There was a meagre dinner of porridge and a bit of salted fish, but exhaustion wins over hunger. Tomorrow will be the same, and the day after, and every day for years to come. This is what becoming a blacksmith really meant in 800 AD. Not glory or immediate respect, but years of brutal labour, burns, beatings, and basic survival. Most apprentices didn't make it. They ran away, were sent back to their families as failures, or in the worst cases, were injured so badly they couldn't work. But there's something else too, something you glimpsed when watching the master transform that piece of iron. A kind of power, the power to create, to transform, to make something from nothing but fire and metal. It's this glimmer of possibility that will keep you going through the hardest days ahead. As you drift off to sleep, the last thing you hear is the distant howl of a wolf outside the village. You shiver, pulling your thin blanket tighter, not like your warm, safe bed right now, but at least you're inside, protected from the dangers that prowl in the night. Tomorrow will be another day of pain and learning, but for now, sleep comes quickly, your body too exhausted to resist its pull. Your second day begins much like the first, the loud clang of hammer on metal jolting you awake before dawn. But this time, you know what's expected. You're at the bellows before the master can shout at you, pumping with arms that protest every movement. Einhard gives you a small nod of approval as he stokes the fire with fresh charcoal. It's not friendship, not yet, but it's something. A tiny acknowledgement that maybe, just maybe, you might have what it takes to survive this. The master is working on horseshoes today. The local Lord Steward brought in 4 horses that need new shoes, and the work must be done quickly. You watch in fascination as the master heats a bar of iron, cuts it to length with a heavy chisel, and then shapes it around a form called a mandrel. 3 quick punches with a tool create the nail holes. The entire process takes mere minutes in the hands of a master. "Pay attention," he tells you gruffly. "Someday you'll need to know this." It's the first hint that he sees any future for you at all, and despite everything, a small spark of pride ignites in your chest. Not that you'll be allowed near the hammer or tongs for months, maybe years, but someday. The village is waking up around the forge, farmers heading to their fields, women carrying water from the well, the occasional pig or chicken wandering through the muddy streets. You catch glimpses of this normal life through the open side of the workshop. Your old life. Part of you aches to run back to it, to the familiar comfort of your family's small farm. But another part, a new part, is becoming fascinated by this strange world of fire and metal. When the master isn't looking, you pick up a small piece of cooled iron slag from the floor, turning it over in your fingers. It's heavier than it looks, with a rough, pitted surface. This is what your life will be now. Heavy, rough, but also solid, real. A sharp cuff to the ear brings you back to reality. Daydreaming won't fill the water bucket, the master growls. Get moving. You scurry to obey, but tuck the small piece of slag into your belt pouch, your first treasure from this new world, a reminder of why you're enduring this hardship, because someday, if you survive, you'll be the one at the anvil, hammer in hand, creating something from nothing. And in this world of 800 AD, where most people live and die without ever changing anything, that's a kind of magic worth suffering for. As you run to fetch more water, your burns stinging and your muscles aching, you realize something. This path will either break you or forge you, just like the metal in the fire, and you're determined to become steel, not slag. The horses arrive mid-morning, massive beasts that tower over you. You've never been this close to a war horse before. The Lord's stablemaster holds them while the master fits the new shoes. You watch, keeping a safe distance. One kick from those hooves could kill a child your size. One day, Einhard whispers to you during a brief moment when the master is distracted. If you're good enough, you might make shoes for the Emperor's own horses. The Emperor? Charlemagne himself? Einhard nods. Master once made tools for a forge that serves the palace at Aachen. Says the Emperor values skilled blacksmiths more than gold. This revelation hits you like a hammer blow. You'd never considered that this brutal apprenticeship might lead beyond the boundaries of your small village, that there might be a world of opportunity if you can just endure these early years. The thought sustains you through another day of endless chores, of hauling and pumping and fetching. By nightfall, you're just as exhausted as yesterday, but something has changed. A tiny seed of ambition has taken root as you collapse onto your straw bed, watching the last embers of the forge glow red in the darkness. You make a silent promise to yourself. You will survive this. You will learn. You will become more than just another village blacksmith. The last thing you see before sleep claims you as the master, silhouetted against the dying forge, carefully arranging his tools for tomorrow's work. His movements are precise, economical, the result of decades of practice. Someday, that will be you. Someday. But first you have to survive tomorrow, and all the tomorrows after that. Your dreams that night are filled with fire and metal, with hammers and anvils, with futures not yet forged. When you wake the next morning, your muscles still ache, your burns still sting, but that small spark of determination burns a little brighter. This is just the beginning of your journey from terrified child to master blacksmith in the age of Charlemagne. The path ahead is longer and harder than you can imagine, but like iron in the forge, you will be transformed by the heat and the hammer. You just don't know what shape you'll take yet. 4 years pass in the blink of an eye, though they sure didn't feel fast while you were living them. You're 12 now, no longer the scared child who arrived at the forge. Your arms have developed wiry muscles from thousands of hours working the bellows. Your hands are calloused, marked with a constellation of small burn scars, and you've grown taller, though still nowhere near the master's imposing height. Dawn breaks over the village as you stoke the forge fire, a task that's become as natural to you as breathing. You don't need Einhard to show you anymore. In fact, Einhard completed his apprenticeship last spring and now travels as a journeyman seeking work in neighbouring towns. You miss him sometimes, but you've taken his place as the master's senior apprentice. There's a new boy now, Willem, a skinny 8-year-old with frightened eyes who reminds you painfully of yourself 4 years ago. He sleeps in the same corner you once did, on the same pile of straw that's been refreshed with new stalks for the changing seasons. Willem, you bark, trying to sound authoritative despite your voice occasionally cracking. The charcoal won't haul itself. The boy scrambles to his feet, rubbing sleep from his eyes. You feel a twinge of guilt for waking him so harshly, but this is how things work. Better he learn from you than face the master's impatience. Good, you say when he hefts the charcoal sack. Remember to keep it dry. Damp charcoal makes weak fires, and weak fires make weak iron. This is something the master taught you, and now you pass it on. Knowledge in the forge moves like this, from master to apprentice, generation to generation, an unbroken chain stretching back centuries. The master emerges from the small room attached to the workshop where he sleeps. He's a mountain of a man, with a beard now streaked with grey and forearms thick as tree trunks. After 4 years, you've learned to read his moods from the set of his shoulders. Today, they're relaxed, a good sign. Or morning, Alaric, he grunts, using your name instead of just boy, a privilege you've earned over the years. Morning, Master Oswald, you reply. You've been stoking the forge for almost an hour already, getting it to the perfect temperature for the day's work. Good heat, he says, holding his palm near the glowing coals. It's not quite praise, but close enough to make your chest swell with pride. The workshop is different from how you first saw it through a child's terrified eyes. Now you understand its organization, the purpose of every tool, the rhythm of the work. The forge dominates the center, a stone structure filled with charcoal reaching waist-high on the master. The anvil sits nearby, its familiar shape worn smooth from decades of use. Along the walls hang the tools of your trade, hammers of various sizes, tongs for handling hot metal, punches, chisels, files, and more specialized implements whose names you've learned one by one. The workshop smells of hot metal, charcoal, sweat, and the distinctive tang of quenching oil. To outsiders, it's overwhelming. To you, it's home. Lord Gunther's steward will be here midday, Master Oswald says, pulling on his thick leather apron. Wants to commission iron fittings for the new storehouse doors. Before then, we need to finish the plough blade for Farmer Morton. You nod, already reaching for the bellows. The plough blade has been a project for several days, a heavy piece requiring multiple heats and careful shaping. Without a good plough, the village's crops would suffer and everyone would go hungry come winter. This is the responsibility of the blacksmith, not just making pretty swords, but ensuring the community survives. Willem returns with the charcoal, his small face smudged black. You show him where to stack it, then send him for water. The master watches this interaction with approval. You're learning to manage, to teach, skills as important as metalwork for a future master smith. Today, Master Oswald says, you'll help with the hammering. Your heart leaps. After 4 years of watching, of doing every chore imaginable, of learning the properties of metal through observation alone, you're finally being allowed to actually shape the iron. It's a watershed moment in your apprenticeship. Thank you, Master, you say, trying to keep your voice steady. Don't thank me yet, he grunts. Your arms will be ready to fall off by sunset. He's not wrong. The hammer he hands you is smaller than his massive striking hammer, but still heavier than anything you've wielded before. The handle is worn smooth from years of use, the head showing the subtle dents and marks of countless strikes. The first heat goes into the forge, the partially completed plough blade nestled among the glowing coals. While it heats, the master quizzes you. How do you know when the iron's ready? By the colour, Master. Bright yellow-orange for shaping. White's too hot, cherry red's too cool. And if you strike metal that's too cool, it won't move properly, might crack, wastes effort. Too hot, burns away, gets brittle, ruined. He nods, satisfied. These are lessons beaten into you, sometimes literally, over 4 years. Timing is everything in the forge. Hesitate too long and the heat fades. Rush and make mistakes. It's a dance with fire and metal that requires absolute focus. The blade begins to glow the right colour, and Master Oswald pulls it from the fire with tongs. He places it on the anvil and nods to you. Strike where I point, not too hard, not too soft. You raise the hammer, suddenly aware of every eye in the shop, the master's critical gaze, Willem's fascinated stare. The hammer feels awkward, your grip uncertain. You bring it down, the clang reverberates through your bones, the shock travelling up your arm, but the metal moves, flattening slightly where you struck. Again. the master says. More controlled. You strike again and again, finding a rhythm. The master turns the blade between strikes, pointing wordlessly where you should hit next. It's exhausting work, requiring more strength and precision than you imagined. Sweat pours down your face, stinging your eyes. After what feels like hours, but is probably only minutes, the metal cools too much to work. Back to the fire, the master says. Not bad for a first try. From him, this is high praise indeed. The day continues in this pattern, heating, hammering, reheating. Your arms scream with effort, but you refuse to show weakness. This is your chance to prove yourself, to show that 4 years of watching and learning have prepared you for real smithing. By midday, when Lord Gunther's steward arrives, the plough blade is taking its final shape. You stand respectfully to the side, your tunic soaked with sweat as the master discusses the new commission. The steward is a thin man with calculating eyes and fine clothes that look out of place in the smoky forge. He represents the local lord, a minor noble who owes fealty to a count, who in turn answers to Charlemagne himself. This chain of obligation defines life in the Carolingian Empire. Lord Gunther requires fittings for his new storehouse. Hinges, hasps, nails, all must be completed before the harvest, the steward says, his voice clipped and precise. It will be done, Master Oswald assures him. But iron doesn't come cheap these days. The Emperor's campaigns require much. They haggle over the price, a dance as precise as hammer strikes on the anvil. You listen carefully. This too is part of your education. Eventually they agree on a price, partly in silver coins, partly in grain from the Lord's stores. After the steward leaves, the master turns to you. Notice he didn't question the timeline or quality, only the price. That's because our reputation is solid. A blacksmith with poor work gets no commissions, no matter how cheap. You nod, absorbing this lesson. Reputation is currency in its own right. The afternoon brings a steady stream of smaller tasks, a farmer needing a broken tool mended, a woman from the village bringing a cracked cooking pot. You handle the bellows while the master works, occasionally being allowed to make a simple repair under his watchful eye. Through the open side of the workshop, you watch village life unfold. Children playing with hoops and sticks, women gossiping by the well, men returning from the fields. Sometimes you catch yourself wondering what life would have been like if you'd stayed on your family's farm. Simpler, perhaps. Easier on your body. But there's something about the forge that gets into your blood, something beyond mere survival. As the sun begins to set, casting long shadows across the workshop floor, the master inspects the completed plough blade. He turns it over in his massive hands, checking the edge, the balance, the thickness. "It'll do," he finally pronounces. Coming from him, it's practically a celebration. Willem has been watching wide-eyed all day, hauling water and charcoal when needed, but mostly observing your first real smithing work. Now he helps bank the fire for the night, his small hands clumsy but willing. "Did you see?" he whispers when the master steps outside to speak with Farmer Morton, who's come to collect his plough blade. "You were actually making something." His awe reminds you of your own first days, of watching Einhard with the same wonder. 4 years from now, it'll be you, you tell him, surprising yourself with the encouragement. Dinner is better than it was when you first arrived. Thick barley soup with actual chunks of salt pork, bread that's only slightly stale, and ale that's not too watered down. Your status has improved with your skills. After the meal, instead of sending you straight to your sleeping corner, Master Oswald motions you to sit by the dying embers of the forge. The fading light catches the planes of his weathered face, highlighting scars and wrinkles earned through decades at the anvil. "You did well enough today," he says gruffly. Tomorrow we'll start on Lord Gunther's fittings. You'll help with the smaller pieces." You nod, too tired to speak but glowing with pride. "A smith needs to understand metal," he continues, poking at the coals, "not just how to hit it, but how it thinks." "Metal thinks, master?" you ask, confused. He snorts. Figure of speech, boy, but each piece of iron has its own nature. Some fight you, some yield easy. You need to learn to read it by the colour, the sound when struck, the way it moves. You listen intently. This is rare, the master actually explaining his craft rather than just demonstrating or barking orders. "Iron remembers," he says, his voice taking on an almost mystical quality. "Every hammer blow, every heat, treat it poorly, it'll break when you least expect. Respect it, understand it." He trails off, staring into the embers. "And it'll serve you well?" you suggest. He grunts in acknowledgement. "Get some sleep. Your arms will be stiff as old leather tomorrow." He's right, of course. As you settle onto your straw mattress, now positioned further from the door in recognition of your status, every muscle protests, your hands throb, your shoulders burn, and you've got a new collection of tiny burns from flying sparks. But there's something else too, a sense of accomplishment that goes beyond mere survival. Today, you didn't just endure, you created. The plough blade that will turn the earth next spring bears the marks of your hammer, your effort. Willem is already asleep, his small chest rising and falling steadily. You watch him for a moment, remembering your own early days. The fear hasn't entirely left him yet, but he's learning. Maybe someday he'll be where you are now, and you'll be, where? A journeyman like Einhard, a master with your own forge. These possibilities, once unimaginable, now seem within reach. Outside, the village is quiet except for the occasional bark of a dog or distant laugh from the alehouse. The rhythm of rural life continues around you, sowing and reaping, birth and death, the turning of seasons that governs everything. But the forge follows its own rhythm, one of fire and metal and human will. And now you're truly part of it, no longer just an observer, but a participant in this ancient dance of transformation. Your eyelids grow heavy, your thoughts blurring at the edges. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, new lessons, new pains. The fittings for Lord Gunther's storehouse, perhaps a chance to work the metal independently, even if just for simple nails. The last thing you see before sleep claims you is your own hands in the dying light. Stronger now, shaped by the forge as surely as the metal you work. The hands of a blacksmith in training, no longer a child's hands. And somewhere in the darkness, the future waits to be hammered into shape. Morning arrives with the familiar ache in your muscles, now compounded by yesterday's exertions. But there's a new feeling too, eagerness to return to the anvil, to feel the rhythm of hammer on metal. The day begins like any other, stoking the forge, organising tools, preparing for the first heat. But today, Master Oswald hands you a small rod of iron. "Make nails," he says simply. "Lord Gunther will need hundreds for his storehouse. Show me you can handle the simple before attempting the complex." A nail, just a tapered piece of iron with a flattened head. So basic, most people never give them a thought. But as you soon discover, creating a good nail requires precision, consistency, and focus. The master demonstrates once, his movements economical and practiced. Heat the rod until it glows the right colour. Draw out the point on the anvil with carefully placed hammer blows. Cut it to length using the hardy, a chisel-like tool that fits into a hole in the anvil. Form the head with a few quick strikes. The entire process takes him less than a minute. Your attempts are far slower, your results irregular. Some points are too blunt, some too thin, some heads are off-centre or malformed. Again, the master says, each time neither criticizing nor praising, just watching. By midday, your pile of acceptable nails has grown, though not as quickly as you'd hoped. Your hands are cramped from gripping the hammer, your forearms burning from the repetitive motion. Not bad, the master finally says, examining your work. You'll improve with practice, and there'll be plenty of that. We need at least 500 for the storehouse. The thought of making 500 nails is daunting, but also oddly satisfying. Each one slightly better than the last, your body learning the movements until they become instinct. This is how you truly learn the craft. Not all at once in great leaps, but nail by nail, hammer blow by hammer blow, day after day. The small victories that eventually add up to mastery. As you place another glowing rod on the anvil, you realize that becoming a blacksmith isn't just about learning to shape metal. It's about being shaped yourself, hammered and folded and tempered like the very iron you work until you become something stronger than you began. 5 more years pass in the rhythm of the forge, the endless cycle of heating, hammering, and cooling that shapes both metal and man. You're 17 now, taller than most men in the village, with shoulders broadened by labor and hands that can tell the temperature of metal by its color alone. The scared child who arrived at Master Oswald's forge 9 years ago exists only in memory. The morning you wake up as a journeyman is no different from any other. The same straw mattress, though you've graduated to a small alcove separated from the main workshop by a rough curtain. The same pre-dawn darkness, the same smoky scent of banked coals waiting to be brought back to life. But today, everything changes. Master Oswald is already at the forge when you emerge, stoking the fire higher than usual. He nods at you, his beard now more grey than brown, the lines around his eyes deeper than when you first met him. Today's the day, he says simply. Your stomach tightens with anticipation. You've been preparing for this moment for months, ever since Master Oswald declared your apprenticeship complete, the final test of your skills, creating your masterwork piece to prove your ability as a journeyman smith. What will you make? He asks, though you've discussed it many times. A sword, you answer, your voice steady with hard-won confidence. Pattern welded, with a bone grip. He grunts approval. Not a knight's battle sword, that would require more time and materials than you can afford, but a practical weapon for a freeman, the kind a merchant might carry on dangerous roads or a prosperous farmer might keep to defend his homestead. Willem, now 13, and no longer the frightened child he once was, brings you a special breakfast. Bread still warm from the baker's oven, a chunk of cheese, and even a small cup of honey. A celebration of sorts. Will you leave right away? He asks, his voice cracking with adolescence. After I finish the sword, you tell him, if it's good enough. It will be, he says with complete faith. Willem has watched you progress from basic nails to complex ironwork, has seen you master techniques that once seemed impossible. To him, you're already a legend. The materials for your masterwork wait by the anvil, bars of iron you've been saving, bits of higher carbon steel carefully hoarded from broken tools, a piece of bone from the butcher for the handle. For once, Master Oswald will not direct or assist. This piece must be entirely your own work. You begin with the fire, building it hotter than normal, feeding it the best charcoal. Next, you select 7 thin strips of iron and 1 of steel, the materials for pattern welding, a technique that creates both beauty and strength. The metal goes into the forge and the work begins. The process is painstaking and precise. You must heat the metal strips, hammer them together, fold the resulting bar, then repeat, creating layers that will later reveal a wavy pattern when etched with acid. Each heating, each hammer blow must be perfect. One mistake could ruin days of work. Master Oswald watches silently from the corner, Willem beside him. Occasionally, other villagers peek in, drawn by word that Oswald's apprentice is making his masterwork. The blacksmith is the heart of any village, and the training of a new one is cause for interest. The day passes in a blur of concentration, sweat pouring down your face in the intense heat. Your world narrows to the glowing metal, the anvil, the hammer in your hand. By sunset, you've created the basic bar from which you'll shape the blade tomorrow. Good start, Master Oswald says, as you finally stop for the day, quenching the layered bar in oil to harden it slightly before the final shaping. Rest well, tomorrow will be harder. You sleep the deep sleep of physical exhaustion, dreaming of fire and metal. Morning comes too quickly, but you rise eagerly, anxious to continue. The second day is about shaping, drawing out the bar into the length and profile of a sword, carefully hammering the edge thinner while leaving the spine thicker for strength. Each heat must be controlled perfectly, each hammer blow placed with precision. By the third day, you're grinding and polishing, revealing the subtle pattern in the metal, whirls and waves like flowing water frozen in steel. The bone handle is attached, wrapped with leather cord for grip. A simple iron pommel and guard, unadorned but well-proportioned, complete the weapon. On the morning of the fourth day, you present the finished sword to Master Oswald. He takes it with respect, testing the balance, examining the edge, the pattern, the handle. "You've made a true blade," he finally says, the highest praise he's ever given you. It will serve its owner well. Pride swells in your chest. 9 years of learning culminating in this moment of validation. You've done it. You're a journeyman smith. That night, the village celebrates your achievement with ale and music. The sword is displayed for all to see, your first true creation, proof of your skill. Tomorrow, you'll sell it to the first suitable buyer, using the money to fund your journeyman travels. Master Oswald pulls you aside during the festivities, his face solemn in the torchlight. "The world beyond this village is not always kind to travellers," he says. "Keep your wits sharp and your knife sharper." "I'll be careful," you promise. "And remember, a true smith can find work anywhere. People always need metal worked, always need things mended or made." You nod, taking in this final lesson. "You did well," he says gruffly, then surprises you by pulling something from his belt. A hammer. Smaller than a forge hammer, but larger than most carpentry tools. "This was my journeyman hammer. Carried it from Saxony to Francia. Never failed me. Now it's yours." The gift leaves you speechless. Master Oswald has never been one for sentimentality. You take the hammer reverently, feeling the perfect balance, the handle worn smooth by years of use. "Thank you, Master," you manage finally. "Not Master anymore," he corrects. "Just Oswald. You're a smith in your own right now." The next morning dawns clear and cool, perfect for travelling. You've packed your few possessions. A change of clothes, the precious hammer from Oswald, basic tools you've acquired over the years, flint and steel for making fire, a small cooking pot, and a knife. Everything fits in a leather satchel and a rolled blanket. Willem helps you prepare, his face struggling to hide his sadness at your departure. "I'll write to you. You promise, though both of you know that neither of you can read or write. It's a promise to remember, to check in when possible. Maybe I'll be on my journeyman travels when you return," he says hopefully. "Maybe," you agree, though who knows what the future holds. Many journeymen never return to their training village, finding opportunity elsewhere or dying on the road. Saying goodbye to Master Oswald, just Oswald now, is harder than you expected. This gruff, demanding man has been the centre of your life for 9 years, has shaped you as surely as you've shaped metal under his guidance. Go with God, he says simply, clasping your forearm in the grip of equals. I'll make you proud, you reply. Already have, he grunts, then turns back to the forge as if it's any other day. And just like that, you're on the road, your masterwork sword sold to a travelling merchant for a decent sum of silver. The coins are carefully hidden in various places on your person, some in a pouch, others sewn into your clothes, a few in your boot. A journeyman smith is a tempting target for thieves. The first few days of travel are disorienting. After 9 years of rigid routine in the forge, the freedom to choose your own path is almost overwhelming. You head north toward the larger town of Reims, where you've heard there are several established smiths who might hire a journeyman. The road is busier than you expected. Farmers bringing goods to market, pilgrims on religious journeys, merchants with loaded carts, occasional groups of armed men serving some local lord. Everyone eyes strangers with suspicion, but the hammer at your belt marks you as a smith, a useful trade, and most nod respectfully as you pass. You sleep under hedges or in barns when farmers allow it, careful to be up and moving at first light. The silver from your sword is enough to buy food for several weeks if you're careful, but you're saving it for emergencies. Instead, you forage when possible, wild onions, berries, occasionally setting snares for rabbits using skills remembered from childhood. A week into your journey, you encounter your first opportunity to practice your trade. A farmer's cart has broken an iron wheel rim on the rutted road, leaving him stranded with a load of wool bound for market. Can you mend it, Smith? He asks hopefully, recognizing your profession from your bearing and the hammer at your belt. You examine the break, clean enough, the metal good quality. I can, but I'll need a fire hot enough to heat the iron. Together, you build a makeshift forge using stones from a nearby wall and charcoal the farmer happens to be carrying for trade. Your portable bellows, a cleverly designed folding leather contraption that was your personal project during your final apprentice year, brings the fire to working heat. It's strange working without the familiar anvil, but a large flat stone serves well enough for this simple repair. Within an hour, you've rejoined the broken rim, hammering the hot metal until the seam is nearly invisible. The farmer is overjoyed, insisting on paying you with a small wheel of cheese and information about a nearby monastery where they might need a smith's services. Their regular smith died of fever last month, he tells you. They've been making do with a brother who has some skill but no proper training. You thank him and adjust your course towards the monastery. This is how journeymen survive, following opportunities, relying on the network of information that flows along the roads of the empire. The monastery proves to be a stroke of luck. The abbot receives you warmly, explaining their predicament. Their previous smith had maintained their bells, repaired metal fixtures, and created tools for the monastery's various workshops. The brother who's been filling in has managed basic repairs, but lacks the skill for more complex work. We can offer room and board, plus a small stipend if you'll stay and help for a few weeks, the abbot proposes. You accept gladly. The monastery has a well-equipped forge, though smaller than Oswald's, and the work is varied and interesting. You repair hinges for massive oak doors, mend broken tools, and even create delicate iron fittings for a reliquary being crafted by the monastery's woodworkers. The brothers treat you with respect, interested in your craft. One elderly monk spends hours watching you work, asking questions about techniques. I'm writing a book of crafts, he explains, showing you pages of careful Latin script, so knowledge won't be lost if masters die before teaching everything they know. The concept is foreign to you, writing down smithing techniques rather than passing them person to person. But you do your best to explain your methods clearly, demonstrating how metal moves differently at various temperatures, how to judge hardness by color and sound. After a month at the monastery, with your purse heavier and your skills sharpened by new challenges, you decide it's time to move on. True journeymen don't settle too long in one place. The purpose is to learn different techniques, to experience different forges and challenges. The abbot provides you with a letter of recommendation, though you can't read it yourself. This will help you find work at other religious houses, he explains. Godspeed your travels, young smith. Back on the road, you head east toward the Rhine, where larger towns promise more specialized work. The journey is harder now. Autumn is turning toward winter, the roads muddier, the nights colder. You miss the warm monastery and sometimes even the familiar discomforts of Oswald's forge. 2 weeks of travel bring you to a fair-sized town nestled against a bend in the Rhine. The sound of hammering draws you to the local smithy, a substantial building with multiple forge fires burning and the distinctive smell of hot metal that always smells like home. The master here is a wiry man named Gerhard, with a shock of white hair and hands so gnarled by arthritis they look like tree roots. Despite his age, his skill is evident in the fine examples of ironwork displayed around his shop. Another journeyman? He asks when you introduce yourself. 3rd this month. Everyone wants to work iron these days. Your heart sinks, expecting rejection, but he continues. But none with monastery training. Let's see what you can do. He tests you with a complex hinge design, watching critically as you work the metal. Your monastery experience proves valuable. The brothers had needed similar work for their scriptorium cabinets. "Oh, not bad," Gerhard admits when you've finished. "I can use you through winter. 1 silver penny a week plus lodging in the loft. No food, but there's a cook shop down the street that's cheap enough." The terms are fair for a journeyman. You accept, settling into the rhythm of a new forge, learning Gerhard's methods, which differ subtly from Oswald's. He favours different hammer techniques, has his own formulas for tempering steel, prefers coal to charcoal when he can get it. This is the true education of a journeyman, absorbing knowledge from different masters, adding to the foundation of your apprenticeship. By day, you work alongside Gerhard and his 2 apprentices. By night, you explore the town, larger than any settlement you've seen before. The town boasts luxuries your village never had, a bathhouse where, for a few copper coins, you can soak in hot water, an inn that serves spiced wine on cold nights, even a small market where merchants sell exotic goods from as far away as Constantinople and beyond. One such merchant becomes a regular patron of Gerhard's forge, commissioning intricate ironwork for his home and business. He takes a liking to you, often stopping to watch you work. "You have talent, young smith," he says one day. "When spring comes, I travel to Aachen on business. The Emperor's palace always needs skilled metal workers. Would you like to join my caravan? Aachen, the heart of Charlemagne's empire, the greatest city in the Christian world." The opportunity is beyond anything you imagined when you set out on your journeyman travels. "I would be honoured," you reply, your mind already racing with possibilities. Winter passes in a blur of work and anticipation. You save every penny of your wages, occasionally splurging only on better food or materials to practice techniques you'll need in Aachen. Gerhard, learning of your opportunity, spends extra time teaching you decorative metalwork that might impress the imperial craftsman. "You'll represent my forge," he says gruffly. "Do it well." As the first hints of spring soften the air, you pack your belongings, now including new tools purchased with your wages and examples of your finest work wrapped carefully in oiled cloth. The merchant's caravan assembles at the town gate, a line of wagons loaded with trade goods, guards on horseback, other travellers joining for safety. You look back at Gerhard's forge one last time, silently thanking the old smith for his knowledge. Then you turn toward the road that will lead to Aachen, to opportunity, to the next chapter in your life as a journeyman blacksmith in the age of Charlemagne. The road stretches before you, muddy from spring rains, but leading to possibilities you could never have imagined as that frightened child on your first day of apprenticeship. Whatever challenges lie ahead, you face them with the confidence of a craftsman who has mastered fire and metal, who has been shaped by the forge into something stronger than he began. Your hand touches the hammer at your belt, Oswald's journeyman hammer, now yours, and you step forward into your future. Aachen exceeds every expectation you had formed during those long winter nights dreaming of the Emperor's capital. The palace complex alone dwarfs the largest buildings you've ever seen, its stone walls and columns rising impossibly high, crowned with arches that seem to defy gravity itself. The chapel, with its octagonal design and golden mosaics, makes you wonder if you've somehow wandered into heaven. But it's the imperial forge that truly takes your breath away. Unlike the simple village smithies you've known, this is a complex of buildings dedicated to metalworking, with specialized areas for different tasks. Multiple forges burn day and night, each attended by smiths working on specific projects. Weapons in one section, decorative metalwork in another, tools and practical items in a third. The sounds of hammers ring in counterpoint, creating a symphony of metal that speaks directly to your soul. Your merchant patron introduces you to the master of the imperial forge, a stern Frank named Einhard, no relation to your fellow apprentice from years ago. He examines your samples with critical eyes while you stand nervously before him, aware that this moment could determine the course of your life. Competent work, he finally says, which from such a master is high praise indeed. We need help with the new bronze doors for the chapel expansion. Can you work bronze as well as iron? You've had limited experience with bronze, mostly repairs to cooking pots and church bells during your journeyman travels, but opportunity doesn't always wait for perfect preparation. I understand the principles, you say carefully. I would be honored to learn your methods. Einhard nods, appreciating your honesty. 2 silver denarii per week, dawn to dusk, 6 days. You'll assist Rodolph with the bronze casting. Just like that, you're employed in the imperial forge, working for the greatest ruler in Christendom. The wage is generous, more than double what you earned in Gerhard's shop, but the real payment is in knowledge and connections. Rodolph, your new supervisor, is a short, barrel-chested man from Italy who speaks with a thick accent but knows more about metal than anyone you've met. Under his guidance, you learn the intricacies of bronze work, how to create proper molds, how to calculate alloy mixtures, how to pour the molten metal without dangerous bubbles or weaknesses. The bronze doors are a massive undertaking, depicting biblical scenes in relief. Your job begins with the humblest tasks, preparing clay for molds, stoking fires to precise temperatures, cleaning finished pieces. But Rodolph is a born teacher, explaining each step as you work together. Bronze remembers every mistake, he tells you, echoing Oswald's words about iron from years ago. Get the pour wrong, the whole piece is ruined. The work is challenging, but deeply satisfying. You're part of something magnificent, something that will outlive everyone involved in its creation. When the first door panel is successfully cast, a scene of Christ entering Jerusalem, the entire workshop celebrates with strong wine and roasted meat, a luxury you rarely experienced as an apprentice or journeyman. Months pass in this new rhythm. You establish yourself as reliable and skilled, gradually being trusted with more complex tasks. Your quarters, a small room shared with 3 other craftsmen, is sparse but comfortable compared to your journeyman travels. The food in Aachen is better than anything you've known. with spices from distant lands and fresh bread daily. Your world expands beyond the forge as well. On your free days, you explore the city, visiting the markets where merchants from across the known world sell their wares. You befriend other craftsmen, woodworkers, stonemasons, glassblowers, exchanging techniques and stories over ale in the evenings. Sometimes you catch glimpses of the imperial court, nobles in fine clothes, clerics with their scrolls and serious expressions, even occasionally the emperor himself, now aging but still imposing with his legendary beard and keen eyes. These people inhabit a different world than yours, but you take pride in knowing your work contributes to the grandeur that surrounds them. 2 years pass in this manner, your skills growing alongside your savings. The bronze doors are completed and installed in the chapel extension, and you feel a swell of pride whenever you pass them, knowing your hands helped create this lasting beauty. But as your 3rd year in Aachen begins, a restlessness grows within you. You've learned much, saved a respectable sum, and established connections throughout the region. Something whispers that it's time for the next step in a smith's journey, establishing your own forge. The opportunity comes unexpectedly through one of the court officials who regularly commissions items from the imperial forge. Baron Theodoric, whose estates lie 3 days' ride from Aachen, mentions that the smith in his main village has died, leaving the community without this essential craftsman. The old forge still stands, he tells you. A competent smith could be established quickly. The village is prosperous. Good farmland, a small monastery nearby, regular trade along the river. You consider it carefully. Leaving the security and prestige of the imperial forge is risky, but remaining means always working under another's direction, always creating another's vision. After a week of deliberation, you approach Einhard to tender your resignation. To your surprise, he seems to have expected it. 3 years is longer than most stay, he says. The talented ones always want their own fire eventually. Rather than disappointment, he offers support, a letter of recommendation bearing the imperial seal, and more practically, permission to purchase tools and materials at the palace's discounted rate before you leave. The emperor needs skilled smiths throughout his lands. Not just in Aachen, Einhard says. Serve your new community well, and you serve Charlemagne just as truly as you have here. Armed with your savings, quality tools, and Einhard's blessing, you make arrangements to travel to Baron Theodoric's lands. The Baron himself offers you transport on his return journey, your few possessions and newly acquired equipment loaded in a small cart. The village of Freilingen is larger than the one where you trained with Oswald, but not by much, perhaps 50 households, a small stone church, fields surrounding it in neat patchwork, and a clear stream running nearby, essential for a smithy's cooling needs. The old forge sits at the village edge, its chimney cold for the first time in generations. It's a sturdy structure, built of stone lower walls with timber framing above, the roof recently repaired. Inside the forge itself, the anvil and basic tools remain. The previous smith's family has kept the most personal items but left the essentials for his successor. Baron Theodoric introduces you to the village headman and the priest, effectively transferring his authority and blessing to your enterprise. With these formalities complete, he continues to his manor house further upriver, leaving you to establish yourself. The first few days are consumed with cleaning and organizing. The forge needs minor repairs. The chimney must be cleared of nests, tools arranged to your preference. A few villagers stop by, curious about the new smith, offering small welcome gifts, a loaf of bread, a jug of ale, a handful of eggs. You accept graciously, understanding these are not just gifts, but the beginning of the complex web of obligations and relationships that will define your place here. Finally, the day comes to light your own forge fire for the first time. You've prepared carefully, selecting the best charcoal, arranging your tools precisely, mentally rehearsing the first items you'll create as an independent master smith. The fire catches quickly, and as you work the bellows, watching the flames grow and the forge heat rise, a profound sense of rightness settles over you. This is your forge, your fire, your anvil. After 17 years of learning and journeying, you've arrived. A small crowd gathers to watch as you begin your first work, a set of simple but elegant iron hooks for the church door. It's both a practical contribution and a public demonstration of your skill. The priest had mentioned the need casually, and fulfilling it immediately establishes your value to the community. You lose yourself in the familiar rhythm. Heat, hammer, cool, repeat. Your body knows these movements. Your eyes judge temperature and alignment without conscious thought. When you finally hold up the finished hooks, there's a murmur of approval from the onlookers. "Fine work, Master Smith," the priest says, using your new title for the first time. The words send a shiver of pride down your spine. Word spreads quickly that the new smith is skilled and fair. The next days bring a steady stream of customers, farmers needing tools repaired before the harvest, the miller requiring new bands for his grinding stones, housewives bringing cracked pots or broken oven tools. You set your prices carefully based on materials and time required, not too high to seem greedy, not too low to devalue your craft. Payment comes in various forms: coins from the wealthier villagers, food or other goods from those with less cash, promises of future services from others. A month passes, then two. You establish a routine, waking before dawn to light the forge, working through the day, keeping accounts in the evening by marking notches on tally sticks. One system for debts owed to you, another for your obligations to others. You rent a small house near the forge, simple but private, a luxury after years of shared quarters. The work is varied and interesting. Unlike the specialized tasks at the Imperial Forge, here you must be versatile. One day crafting delicate hinges for a wealthy merchant's cabinet, the next forging heavy plough blades for the fall tilling. Each project presents its own challenges, and you draw on every technique learned during your years of training. As summer turns to autumn, you take on your first apprentice, a local boy named Adso, 12 years old, serious and eager to learn. Having been in his position, you strive to be firm but fair, teaching with patience rather than the cuffs and harsh words that sometimes marked your own training. The fire doesn't care if you're tired or hungry, you tell him, echoing Oswald's lessons. It demands respect always. Adso absorbs everything like dry tinder catching spark, reminding you of your own early fascination with the craft. Having him handle the simplest tasks frees you for more complex work, allowing you to accept more commissions. By winter, you've established yourself as an essential part of village life. Your forge becomes a gathering place where men exchange news and gossip while waiting for work to be completed. You learn the rhythms of the community, which families feud, which farmers have the best grain, which traders can be trusted. The village women gauge your eligibility as a husband, sometimes sending daughters on transparent errands to the forge. At 24, you're well established enough to support a family, and your position as master smith makes you a desirable match. After careful consideration, you begin courting Matilda, the miller's daughter, intelligent, practical, and familiar with the demands of a craft-centered life. Baron Theodoric visits occasionally, always commissioning special items for his manor house, decorative fire grates, elaborate door hinges, weapons for his household guards. These projects allow you to showcase your finest skills, and the Baron pays well, both in silver and in influence. When there's a dispute about water rights affecting your forge cooling stream, a word from him resolves it quickly in your favor. Spring brings new challenges and opportunities. The river trade reopens after the winter freeze, bringing merchants with metal goods from distant lands. You study these carefully, learning new designs and techniques. One trader from the Byzantine East carries steel of such quality. It makes you reconsider everything you know about metal. You purchase a small piece at great expense, saving it for a special project. Your reputation spreads beyond Freilingen. Monasteries from 2 days' ride away send brothers with commissions for bell repairs or specialized tools for their scriptoria. A minor noble whose lands border Baron Theodoric's orders a decorative sword after seeing your work at the Baron's manor house. These prestigious projects allow you to charge premium prices, which in turn let you invest in better tools and materials. You add a specialized hardy anvil for particular cutting work, purchase higher quality iron stock, experiment with different fuel mixtures to achieve hotter, cleaner fires. ADSO progresses rapidly under your tutelage. Now trusted with simple repairs and basic forging, you begin teaching him the mysteries of steel, how to judge carbon content, how to achieve the perfect temper, how to create the watered patterns that mark the finest blades. This isn't just craft, you tell him. It's alchemy. We transform one thing into another, base metal into objects of beauty and purpose. Your courtship of Matilda advances steadily, meeting with approval from her family and the community. Plans form for a wedding after the harvest when work slows and celebrations are easier to arrange. You begin expanding your house, adding a second room and improving the hearth. Life settles into a satisfying pattern, challenging work, growing prosperity, respect from your peers, a future taking shape before you. The frightened apprentice, the wandering journeyman, even the imperial forge worker, all seem like distant memories, earlier versions of yourself that led to this fulfillment. Then comes the message that will change everything again. A royal messenger arrives in Freilingen, bearing a sealed letter addressed to you by name. The village buzzes with speculation as he delivers it directly to your forge. Breaking the wax seal, you find a summons from Einhard, master of the imperial forge. The emperor requires a master smith for a special commission, a gift for the Pope himself, an intricately worked reliquary of silver and gold with iron framework. Your experience with both the imperial standards and independent creative work makes you ideal for the task. The commission would require several months in Aachen with generous compensation. It's an extraordinary honour, one that could elevate your status far beyond that of a village smith, but accepting means leaving your established forge, delaying your marriage, interrupting ADSO's training. The community has come to depend on your skills. Who would shoe the horses, repair the ploughs, create the tools needed for daily life? You stand at your anvil, the letter in your soot-stained hands, facing a choice between ambition and obligation, between extraordinary opportunity and the life you've built. The heat of the forge warms your face as you consider what kind of mastersmith, what kind of man you truly want to be. The imperial summons represents the pinnacle of professional recognition. The Pope's reliquary would be seen by the most powerful men in Christendom, your craftsmanship preserved for generations. Yet Freilingen has become home. These people, your community. Your forge serves essential needs, not just ornamental desires of the powerful. As the day's fire dies down and shadows lengthen across your workshop, you reach a decision that will shape the next chapter of your life as a master blacksmith in the age of Charlemagne. After a night of restless sleep, you reach a compromise that honors both your ambitions and obligations. You write back to Einhard, accepting the commission, but with conditions. You'll travel to Aachen with designs and materials, work there for shorter periods between returns to Freilingen, and bring Adso as your assistant. This arrangement will allow you to maintain your village forge with temporary help from a retired smith in a neighboring settlement. To your surprise, Einhard agrees. The Emperor values craftsmanship over convenience, and your solution demonstrates the practical problem-solving expected of a master smith. Matilda, showing the practicality that first attracted you, supports your decision. The honor of an imperial commission and its payment will provide security for your future together. And so begins a new chapter in your life, balancing two worlds, the prestigious work at the imperial court and your responsibilities to your village community. The reliquary project proves even more complex than anticipated, designed to hold a fragment of the true cross, sent as a gift to Charlemagne. It requires an iron framework of unprecedented delicacy overlaid with precious metals. The technical challenges excite your craftsman's mind, pushing your skills to new heights. Adso thrives in the imperial environment, wide-eyed at the splendor of Aachen, but also keenly observant of techniques used by specialized metalsmiths. "I'm learning enough for 3 apprenticeships," he tells you one evening, his hands stained with polishing compounds from helping the goldsmiths. Between stretches in Aachen, you return to Freilingen, working intensely to catch up on village needs. These transitions are exhausting but satisfying, and each return strengthens your standing in the community. The village takes pride in their smith being chosen for imperial work. After 6 months of split attention, the reliquary is completed, a masterpiece of integrated metalwork that draws gasps when unveiled to the court. Charlemagne himself, now in his 70s but still sharp-eyed, examines it closely before nodding approval. "The smith honors the gift and its purpose," he pronounces, and though he speaks to his advisors rather than directly to you, the acknowledgement sends a ripple of pride through your body. The payment for the reliquary is generous, gold solidi that represent more wealth than you've ever possessed at once, but more valuable is the reputation it establishes. Word spreads throughout the region. The master smith of Freilingen has created work for the emperor himself. Upon your final return to the village, life resumes its rhythm. Your delayed wedding to Matilda finally takes place, a celebration that brings together the entire community. Baron Theodoric himself attends, presenting you with a fine cloak trimmed with fox fur, a gift that symbolizes your elevated status. With Matilda managing household affairs with quiet efficiency, you're free to focus entirely on your craft. The forge expands with a second fire pit for Adso's increasingly independent work. Your home grows too, with a proper stone foundation and additional rooms, including a small chamber where you can meet with important clients away from the heat and noise of the workshop. One such client arrives unexpectedly on a crisp autumn morning. Count Gerald, a powerful noble whose lands encompass many villages including Freilingen. He comes with minimal entourage, but the quality of his horse and arms speaks of his wealth and position. "Master Smith," he addresses you with the formality due your craft. "I require weapons and armor for my household guard. The Emperor has called for forces to secure our eastern borders, and my men must be properly equipped." This commission represents a significant shift in your work. Until now, you've primarily created tools, household items, and decorative metalwork. Weapons have been a small part of your output, the occasional hunting knife or simple sword. Armor, with its specialized requirements, has been beyond your regular production. But the Imperial Forge exposed you to these techniques, and the Count's commission cannot be refused. As a vassal of Charlemagne, Gerald's military preparedness is essential to the Empire's security. I would be honoured, my lord, you reply. What quantities do you require? 20 swords, 40 spearheads, 15 helmets, and 10 chainmail hauberks to start, he answers. Quality over speed, but time is not unlimited. The scale is daunting. This is not work you can complete alone. Even with Adso's help, it will require organisation, additional labour, and expanded facilities. I'll need to bring in assistance, my lord, and acquire substantial raw materials. The costs will be significant. Count Gerald nods, unsurprised. I've brought silver for the initial payment, he says, gesturing to a sealed pouch his attendant holds. Baron Theodoric vouches for your honesty and skill. Don't disappoint either of us. After he departs, you sit with Matilda, calculating what this project will require. The silver payment is generous, but the logistical challenges are immense. You'll need to convert part of the nearby barn into an extended workshop, hire strong labourers for the heavy hammering, source quantities of high-quality iron, and acquire specialised tools for armour making. It's an opportunity, not just a challenge, Matilda points out. Complete this successfully and more such work will follow. She's right, of course. Weapons and armour command higher prices than agricultural tools. Noble patrons pay more reliably than farmers dependent on harvest fortunes. This commission could elevate your forge from a village necessity to a regional powerhouse. The transformation begins immediately. Within days, workers are adapting the barn, creating a larger forge area with multiple fire pits. You send Adso with a cart and silver to the iron markets of the nearest city, trusting his trained eye to select the best stock. Runners carry messages to smiths you know from your journeyman days, offering work at good wages. By the month's end, your modest forge has become a small factory. 3 journeyman smiths have joined you, each bringing specialised skills. One is particularly adept at blade grinding, another at heat treating, the third at metal shaping for helmets. Under your direction, they work in coordinated shifts, maximising the use of fires and tools. Local men are hired for the heaviest labour, working the larger bellows, striking with sledgehammers for the initial forming, hauling materials. Matilda manages this expanded household, ensuring all are properly fed and quartered, keeping accounts with meticulous care. The work is grueling but exhilarating. Each weapon type presents unique challenges, and armour even more so. Chainmail is particularly demanding. Thousands of individual rings must be formed, linked together, and riveted closed, a painstaking process that strains the eyes and fingers. But the techniques you learned at the Imperial Forge serve you well, allowing you to establish efficient methods. Adso thrives amid the intensity, absorbing new skills from each journeyman while maintaining the quality standards you've instilled in him. He'll be ready for his masterwork piece within a year, one of the journeymen comments, recognizing talent and thorough training. As weeks pass, the commissioned items begin to accumulate in the secure storeroom you've built specially for this purpose. Each sword is individually tested for strength and balance, each spearhead properly hardened, each helmet fitted with care. The mail hauberks take longest, but gradually they too are completed, ring by ring, each one representing hours of focused labour. Count Gerald sends periodic inspectors to check progress, and their reports must satisfy him, for no complaints return. When the first complete set of equipment is ready, sword, helm, and mail, you send word to the Count's fortress. He arrives personally to examine the work, bringing his arms master, a scarred veteran named Ragnar, who tests each piece with expert scrutiny. The sword is flexed, struck against a wooden post, examined for balance. The helmet is inspected for sight lines and protection. The mail is checked ring by ring for proper closure. This equals anything from the imperial armories, Ragnar finally pronounces, nodding to his lord. Count Gerald seems pleased but not effusive. Nobles rarely show too much satisfaction when negotiating with craftsmen. Continue at this standard, he says. I may require additional pieces before campaign season. As he prepares to leave, he pauses, studying you with calculated assessments. The Emperor has postponed his campaign until spring, but preparations continue. I'm responsible for equipping 300 men from my lands. Not all require such fine equipment as my personal guard, but all need serviceable arms. The implication is clear. This initial commission could be just the beginning of much larger orders. Both opportunity and burden, it would mean maintaining this expanded operation indefinitely. I stand ready to serve the Emperor's needs through you, my lord. You respond carefully, aware of the political complexities. Direct imperial service brought prestige, but also rigid obligations. Working through Count Gerald offers some independence while still connecting to larger purposes. Winter settles over Freilingen, but your forges never cool. The expanded workshop, now employing over a dozen men, has transformed the village economy. Farmers supply food, women spin and weave cloth for the workers' needs. The alehouse does brisk business each evening. Your operation has become the centre of local prosperity. Matilda announces she's with child, bringing personal joy amid professional intensity. The thought of fatherhood, of a legacy beyond metal and fire, shifts something fundamental in your perspective. Your work has always been about survival, advancement, craft. Now it connects to a future beyond your own life. As the first snows blanket the countryside, Count Gerald sends word. He requires not just equipment for his men, but a special sword for himself, worthy of his station when presented at the Emperor's spring court. This commission allows you to utilize that precious Byzantine steel purchased years ago, saved for a project of true significance. The creation of this sword becomes a personal quest separate from the production work overseen by your journeyman. You return to the pure focus of individual craftsmanship, working alone during pre-dawn hours before the workshop fills with men and noise. The blade takes shape slowly, requiring multiple careful forging sessions to layer and pattern the steel. You experiment with edge-hardening techniques learned from a Saxon smith during your journeyman days, seeking the perfect balance between flexibility and cutting power. For the hilt, you collaborate with the local woodcarver and the leather worker, creating a grip that fits Count Gerald's hand precisely, based on measurements provided by his steward. The pommel and guard are formed from bronze, engraved with symbols of his lineage and authority. When complete, the sword is both practical weapon and statement of rank, balanced for combat but beautiful enough for court display. You name it Emperor's voice, an acknowledgement of whose authority it ultimately represents. Count Gerald's reaction upon receiving the sword confirms your success. Unlike the restrained approval shown for the regular commissions, he tests the blade with visible pleasure, executing practice cuts with fluid grace that reveals his own martial training. "You've exceeded expectations, Master Smith," he says, sheathing the weapon. "The Emperor will recognize its quality. The completed commission, all 20 swords, 40 spearheads, 15 helmets, and 10 mail hauberks, plus the Count's personal sword, represents the largest project of your career. The payment, delivered in both silver and grants of land usage rights, secures your position among the wealthiest craftsmen in the region. But success brings its own challenges. The expanded workshop cannot simply be dismantled now that the immediate need is fulfilled. The journeymen and labourers depend on continued employment. The village economy has restructured around your operation. Fortunately, word of your work for Count Gerald spreads through noble circles. Other lords preparing for the same imperial campaign send representatives seeking similar equipment. The local abbey commissions decorative metalwork for a new reliquary, inspired by descriptions of your imperial project. Merchants from as far as the Rhine cities request specialized tools they cannot source elsewhere. Your forge transitions from rushed wartime production to diverse, steady work, still larger than your original village smithy, but more balanced and sustainable. Some journeymen depart for other opportunities, but a core group remains, allowing you to focus on the most challenging projects while they handle routine production. Adso completes his training and creates his masterwork, an intricate door lock with hidden mechanisms that impress even veteran smiths. You present him with his journeyman's hammer in a ceremony that echoes your own graduation from apprentice status 15 years earlier. "Will you stay on?" you ask him afterward. Good journeymen can always find positions, and many prefer to travel before settling. "For now," he answers, "there's still much to learn from you, and—" He hesitates, glancing toward the dyer's shop where the owner's daughter works. Personal attachments often influence professional decisions, as you well know. As spring approaches, bringing the birth of your child ever closer, Count Gerald summons you to his fortress. The request is unexpected. Normally he would send for you only if requiring additional work. The fortress sits atop a hill overlooking several villages, its stone walls solid but not ornate. This is a practical military installation, not a palace of luxury. You're led through corridors where arms and armor hang ready for use, to a chamber where the Count sits with several advisors. "Master Smith," he greets you formally. The Emperor's campaign preparations have changed. Charlemagne has decided to remain in Aachen, sending his son Pepin to lead the eastern forces, but he still requires full accounting of preparations. You listen, uncertain how this political information relates to your forge work. All commissioned pieces have been delivered and approved. "I am to provide a detailed report on military readiness, including the quality of arms," Count Gerald continues. "Rather than send examples of your work, I wish you to accompany me to Aachen to speak directly about production capabilities in our region." The invitation represents a significant elevation in status. Craftsmen rarely participate in such high-level discussions, typically represented by their noble patrons. That Count Gerald wants you personally present suggests he values your expertise as an asset in imperial politics. It also presents a dilemma similar to the Reliquary Commission, leaving your forge and pregnant wife for an extended journey. But Matilda, ever practical, insists you must go. "The child won't arrive for 2 months yet," she says, placing your hand on her rounded belly. "This connection to the imperial court secures our future and our child's. The journey to Aachen is easier than your previous travels. Riding with a noble's entourage means good horses, regular meals, and secure lodging each night." Count Gerald treats you with surprising collegiality along the way, discussing metalworking techniques with genuine interest. "Had circumstances been different, I might have enjoyed learning a craft," he admits one evening. "There's honesty in making something with your hands that politics lacks." Arriving at Aachen brings a flood of memories. The palace complex looks much as it did during your time at the Imperial Forge, though new construction continues constantly. You recognize some faces among the craftsmen you pass, exchanging quick greetings. The meeting with imperial officials is held in a chamber adjacent to the main palace, ornate enough to impress visitors but separate from the emperor's personal quarters. Nobles from various regions present their readiness reports to a stern official who records details in careful script. When your turn comes, Count Gerald presents you with unexpected deference. "This is Master Alaric, whose forge has equipped my household guard. He can speak to the quality and quantity of arms production in our region." The imperial official, initially dismissive of a commoner's presence, becomes attentive as you describe your operations, the number of weapons produced, the sources of materials, the training of additional smiths. Your technical knowledge proves valuable as discussions turn to standardization of equipment across different regional forces. The meeting extends longer than planned, with additional officials called in to hear your assessment of iron supplies and production capacities. By its conclusion, you've been asked to prepare a written report dictated to a scribe, as you never learned letters, on sustainable arms production for the Eastern campaigns. That evening, Count Gerald hosts a small feast for his entourage, including you, another marker of unusual status. The wine flows freely, and conversation turns to the Emperor's health and succession plans. Charlemagne has ruled for over 40 years, an advisor comments. His son, Pepin, is capable, but transition always brings uncertainty. Count Gerald nods thoughtfully. Uncertain times require loyal men and reliable equipment. Our position is strengthened by demonstrating both. You begin to understand your role in a larger game. Your forge's production is not just military preparation, but political currency in imperial relationships. The quality of your work reflects on Count Gerald's competence and reliability as a vassal. The realization is sobering. Your craft, once simply about survival and personal advancement, now connects to empire-wide concerns. The weapons you forge may determine not just individual combat outcomes, but regional stability. As you retire to your assigned quarters, more comfortable than anything in Freilingen, you find yourself at another transition point. No longer just a village smith, not quite a noble advisor, your identity expands with your influence. Sleep comes slowly as you contemplate this new reality. From frightened apprentice to imperial consultant in 20 years, a transformation as profound as any metal reshaped in your forge. Yet the core remains the same, understanding materials, solving problems, creating what's needed. Tomorrow brings another meeting with imperial officials, then preparations for the return journey, back to Freilingen, to Matilda, to your forge, and the child who will arrive soon, back to the life you've built, now connected more firmly to the wider empire. The future stretches before you with new possibilities, shaped by your choices just as metal is shaped by your hammer. Not the frightened child who began this journey, not even the same man who established his first independent forge. You've been transformed by fire and pressure, folded and hammered into something stronger than you began. 30 years pass like the seasons, sometimes slowly in the moment, but startlingly swift in retrospect. The frightened child apprentice, the ambitious journeyman, the establishing master, all these versions of yourself feel simultaneously like yesterday and like someone else's memories. You're 54 now, your once dark hair and beard streaked heavily with grey. Your hands, those essential tools of your craft, have changed the most, gnarled like ancient tree roots, joints swollen from decades of impact, skin a permanent map of scars and calluses. They ache in the morning and during damp weather, a constant reminder of the physical price your body has paid for your craft. The workshop has changed too, expanded several times over the decades until it barely resembles the simple village forge where you began. Multiple fire pits burn under the supervision of journeymen and senior apprentices. A separate building houses the finishing work. Polishing, detail carving, leatherwork for handles and fittings. What was once your personal craft is now a small industry employing over 20 workers during busy periods. Your son Gerald, named in honor of Count Gerald, who elevated your status those many years ago, works alongside you as a full partner. At 29, he has surpassed your technical skills in many ways, combining your traditional training with innovations learned during his own journeyman travels to Byzantine territories. His specialized Damascus steel blades command prices that would have seemed impossible in your early career. Matilda, her own hair now silver but her mind as sharp as ever, has transitioned from managing your household to overseeing the business aspects of the forge complex. She negotiates with merchants, tracks accounts, and handles correspondence through a scribe who visits weekly. Literacy being one advantage you ensured for your children that you never had yourself. Your daughter Adela manages the family's other enterprises, the farmland acquired through decades of profits, the mill purchased when the old miller retired, the vineyards on the south-facing slopes outside the village. What began as a simple blacksmith's forge has grown into a family holding that employs half the village in some capacity. This morning, like most mornings these past few years, you wake before dawn not from eagerness to work, but from the persistent pain in your hands and back. Decades at the anvil have left their mark in ways no amount of success can erase. You ease yourself upright, flexing your fingers slowly to work out the stiffness, a ritual as familiar as breathing. Matilda stirs beside you. "The new apprentices arrived today," she murmurs, always tracking the operational details, even half asleep. You acknowledge. 3 new boys, sons of minor nobility from across the region. Your forge's reputation now attracts apprentices from well beyond Freilingen, some paying substantial fees for the privilege of learning at the renowned workshop of Master Alaric. You dress slowly in the dim light filtering through the shuttered windows of your bedchamber. The room itself reflects your rise in status, spacious with a proper bed frame rather than a straw mattress on the floor, tapestries on the walls to cut the chill, even a small bronze mirror imported from Italy, a far cry from the corner of Oswald's workshop where you slept as a child. Thinking of Oswald brings a familiar pang of regret. You visited your old master only once after establishing yourself, finding him aged and his forge diminished, operated mainly by journeymen as his strength failed. He died before witnessing your greatest successes. You've sometimes wondered if he would have been proud or merely unsurprised that his demanding training produced such results. Breakfast awaits in the main hall of what can now properly be called a manor house, though modest compared to true noble residences. Fresh bread, cheese, preserved fruits, and small beer, luxuries unimaginable to that hungry apprentice of decades past. You eat lightly, your appetite diminished with age, then make your way to the forge complex. The morning air is crisp with early autumn, dew silvering the grass along the path. Workers nod respectfully as you pass, most heading to their assigned stations. The forge day begins with or without the master's presence now, a testament to the systems you've established over the years. Your personal workshop sits apart from the production areas, a space reserved for special projects and teaching. The fire is already lit, your current apprentice Thomas having arrived early to prepare for the day. He's 16, in his 8th year of training, nearly ready for his journeyman piece. "Good morning, master," he greets you, his attention focused on arranging tools for the day's work. "Morning," you reply, easing yourself onto the stool by the workbench. Your days of standing for hours at the anvil are largely past, though you still demonstrate techniques when needed. The fittings for the church doors? Ready for final polishing, Thomas confirms, indicating the elaborate iron hinges commissioned by the regional bishop. Your forge now specializes in decorative metalwork as much as practical items, your reputation allowing you to focus on higher value creations. The morning passes in comfortable routine, checking Thomas's work, offering corrections and guidance, reviewing designs for upcoming projects. Around midday, Gerald brings the new apprentices for introduction. 3 boys, as expected, all around 10 years old. 2 look terrified, eyes wide at the heat and noise of the forge complex. The third maintains a carefully composed expression that doesn't quite hide his anxiety. You recognize in all of them echoes of your own first day, that mixture of fear and fascination that comes with entering an alien world. "This is Master Alaric," Gerald tells them with the formality the occasion demands. "You will address him with respect and obey his instructions without question. You study the boys thoughtfully. Unlike your own harsh introduction to smithing, you've developed a more measured approach to training. Still demanding, the craft requires discipline, but tempered with explanation and encouragement. Being a smith means understanding fire and metal better than you understand yourself," you tell them, your voice rough from decades of forge smoke. "It means learning when to force your will upon the material and when to work with its nature. It means patience, precision, and perseverance." You rise from your stool, ignoring the protest from your back, and take a bar of iron from the fire with tongs. "Watch," you command, placing it on the anvil. Despite your age and the pain in your joints, decades of muscle memory allow you to demonstrate basic hammering with fluid precision. The iron bar begins to flatten and stretch under your controlled strikes. The boys watch, mesmerized by the simple transformation. "Today you begin with cleaning and pumping the bellows," you tell them after returning the iron to the fire. "Years from now, if you prove worthy, you'll create works that outlive you. The choice between failure and mastery will be made daily by your own hands." Gerald assigns the boys to their initial tasks and leads them away. You ease back onto your stool, massaging your wrist where the old inflammation has flared from even that brief demonstration. "They seem promising," Thomas comments, returning to his polishing. "Too early to tell," you reply. "The fire reveals true nature over time." Later that afternoon, as you review accounts with Matilda in the relative quiet of your house, a messenger arrives from Count Aldrich, the son of Count Gerald, who inherited his father's lands 2 decades earlier. The relationship with the family has continued through the years. Your forge still supplying the Count's household needs, though imperial commissions have become rare since Charlemagne's death and the subsequent division of his empire among quarrelling heirs. The message is brief but significant. The Count requests your presence at his fortress tomorrow to discuss a special commission. Despite your semi-retirement from active smithing, certain clients still insist on consulting directly with the master. "Will you go?" Matilda asks, knowing how you've come to dislike travel as your body has aged. "Of course," you sigh. "The political connections maintained through such relationships protect your family's position. Some obligations don't diminish with age. The journey to Count Aldrich's fortress the next day is made easier by the horse-drawn cart your status now affords, though every bump in the road sends jolts of pain through your back. You're accompanied by Gerald, increasingly your representative in business matters. Count Aldrich receives you in his private chambers rather than the formal hall, a mark of personal respect rather than mere business courtesy. Now in his 50s himself, he has grown from the eager young noble who inherited his father's title into a shrewd leader navigating the complex politics of the fragmented empire. "Master Alaric," he greets you warmly, "your years sit lighter on you than mine seem to on me." You both know this for the polite fiction it is. Your body bears every mark of its decades of labour, but you appreciate the courtesy. "My lord honours me with his attention," you respond formally. "How may my forge serve you?" The Count gestures to a chest brought forward by his steward. Not my needs this time, but a matter of legacy. Inside the chest lie weapons and armor created by your forge over the decades. Swords, helmets, mail sections, all showing signs of hard use but still serviceable. You recognize your own work from various periods, including pieces from that first major commission 30 years ago. My father's campaign equipment, Count Aldrich explains. And some of mine from younger days. They've served our family through 3 generations of service to the Empire. You examine the pieces with professional interest, noting how different items have worn over time, which designs proved most durable, which metals held their properties best. Even now, there are lessons to be learned from old work. The Imperial Museum in Aachen is collecting significant artifacts from Charlemagne's reign, the Count continues. I've been asked to contribute items representing military preparedness during the Eastern campaigns. These pieces from your forge seem appropriate, but they should before presentation. The request is both practical and deeply symbolic. These weapons, created during your forge's rise to prominence, now represent historical artifacts worthy of imperial preservation. Your work, once merely functional, has become part of the Empire's heritage. It would be my honor, you tell him, genuinely moved by the significance. My son and I will oversee the restoration personally. On the return journey, you find yourself unusually reflective, contemplating how objects created by your hands have developed their own histories, their own journeys parallel to yours. The weapons that helped establish your reputation will now outlive you, preserved as cultural treasures rather than practical tools. Strange to think of our work becoming history, you comment to Gerald as the cart rumbles homeward. He nods thoughtfully. Everything we create continues beyond us. That's why quality matters, not just for the first user, but for all the eyes that will see it generations later. The insight surprises you, not the thought itself, which you've had in various forms throughout your career, but hearing it articulated by your son with such clarity. He has absorbed not just your technical skills, but the philosophy underlying them. The restoration project becomes a family affair over the following weeks. You supervise more than participate, your hands no longer capable of the finest work, but your knowledge guides every decision. Gerald leads the metalwork restoration, while Thomas and the senior apprentices handle cleaning and polishing. Even your daughter Adela contributes, researching through church records the specific campaigns where each piece was used. Working with these artifacts from your earlier career brings memories flooding back. The pressure of that first major commission, the pride of creating Count Gerald's personal sword, the exhaustion and satisfaction of building your reputation piece by piece. The physical objects connect past and present in tangible form. As the restoration nears completion, you find yourself spending more time teaching the new apprentices than overseeing the project. Something about revisiting your early work has awakened a desire to ensure your knowledge transfers properly to the next generation. No, like this, you tell the youngest boy, adjusting his grip on the bellows. Feel the resistance of the air. The fire breathes through your hands. You demonstrate techniques you haven't personally performed in years, ignoring the pain it causes. The boys watch with varying degrees of comprehension, some grasping immediately, others requiring repetition, just as you once did under Oswald's critical eye. One evening, as you sit by the hearth in your home, Matilda joins you with a cup of mulled wine to ease the day's aches. "You've been spending more time with the apprentices lately," she observes. "I thought you were reducing your teaching duties." You warm your perpetually cold hands around the cup. "Restoring those old pieces reminded me of something important. The craft doesn't just exist in the metal. It lives in the transmission from master to apprentice, generation to generation." She smiles, the firelight softening the lines age has etched into her face. "You've come a long way from that angry young journeyman who first arrived in Freilingen." "Angry?" you question, surprised by her characterization. "Oh yes," she laughs softly. "So determined to prove yourself, to rise beyond your origins. You worked with such intensity, such focus. It was impressive and a little frightening." You've never thought of yourself that way, but her perspective rings true. The driving ambition that propelled you from apprentice to imperial craftsman had indeed bordered on anger at times, at limitations, at obstacles, at the circumstances of your birth. "And now?" you ask. "Now you understand what truly lasts," she says simply. The completed restoration pieces are presented to Count Aldrich in a formal ceremony that draws nobility from across the region. The weapons and armour, returned to their original glory while respecting the honest wear of use, are displayed on velvet-covered tables in the Count's great hall. These pieces represent not just military history, but the highest standards of Frankish craftsmanship, Count Aldrich announces to the assembled guests. Master Alaric's forge has maintained these standards for 3 decades, training generations of smiths who now serve throughout the empire. The public recognition is gratifying, but you find your attention drawn more to the reaction of your apprentices, brought to observe the ceremony as part of their education, their wide-eyed realization that humble forge work can lead to such recognition holds more satisfaction than the praise of nobles. The years continue their steady march. Your role increasingly becomes one of knowledge keeper rather than active craftsman. You oversee apprentice training, consult on the most significant commissions, and document techniques that might otherwise be lost. Gerald manages daily operations, expanding into new markets as political configurations shift following the further fragmentation of Charlemagne's empire. Your grandchildren, 4 at last count, grow up surrounded by the forge's activities, absorbing the rhythms and language of metalwork from their earliest days. 2 show promising interest in continuing the family craft, asking endless questions and attempting small projects under careful supervision. One winter morning, as snow blankets Freilingen in pristine white, you wake with more difficulty than usual. The cold has settled deep in your bones, and the simple act of rising requires deliberate effort. Matilda, always attuned to your condition, sends for the herb woman who has helped manage your pain in recent years. Just the weather, you insist, though you suspect it's more than that. At 62, you've outlived many contemporaries, including most of the smiths you knew during your journeyman travels. Despite discomfort, you make your way to the workshop after breakfast, drawn by habit and responsibility. The apprentices are progressing well on their assigned projects, simple nails and hooks for the newest boys, more complex fittings for the intermediates, and Thomas preparing for his journeyman piece, a ceremonial axe commissioned by a church official. You move among them, offering guidance, making small adjustments to techniques, sharing insights gained through decades of experience. The familiar smells of hot metal and coal, the rhythmic ringing of hammers, the radiant heat of the forge, these sensations have defined your life for over 50 years. Midday finds you tired beyond normal fatigue. You retreat to your private corner of the workshop, easing onto the padded stool that accommodates your aged body. From here, you can observe the activities while resting. Thomas approaches with a question about tempering the axe blade. As you explain the precise colour to watch for, a memory surfaces vividly. Oswald telling you the same information 4 decades earlier, his gruff voice betraying no hint that he was sharing crucial knowledge that would shape your career. The circle completes itself. The frightened child becomes the revered master. The secret knowledge passes hand to hand, generation to generation, preserving humanity's hard-won understanding of fire and metal. That evening, by your hearth, you share the day's reflections with Mathilde. I saw myself in Thomas today, and Oswald in myself. She nods, understanding. The craft continues through different hands, but remains the same at its heart. Not entirely the same, you muse. Each generation adds something. Gerald's Damascus techniques, Thomas's decorative patterns. The apprentices will find their own innovations. While building on what you've given them, she adds, always your strongest advocate. You drift into comfortable silence, watching the fire dance in patterns as familiar as your own hands. The flames remind you of your first day at Oswald's forge, the terror, the wonder, the beginning of a journey you could never have imagined. From frightened child to master craftsman, from simple village forge to regional industry, from bare survival to prosperity and respect, the transformations parallel those you've wrought on countless pieces of metal, heating, hammering, shaping raw material into objects of purpose and beauty. Your eyelids grow heavy as the fire's warmth penetrates your perpetually cold hands. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, new apprentices to teach, new metal to shape. The work continues, whether through your hands or others. The craft remains, outlasting any individual practitioner. Iron becomes steel, steel becomes sword, sword becomes history, apprentice becomes journeyman, journeyman becomes master, master becomes memory. But the knowledge, the techniques, the traditions endure. This is the true immortality of the blacksmith, not just in objects that outlast human lifespans, but in the unbroken chain of knowledge passed from hand to hand since humans first learned to shape metal with fire. As sleep claims you, warm and secure in the home built by your craft, you reflect that the frightened child who began this journey would hardly recognize the aged master you've become, yet the core remains the same. The fascination with transformation, the pride in creation, the respect for material. You've been shaped by the forge as surely as any piece of metal, hammered and folded by experience, tempered by challenges, polished by accomplishment. The result is something stronger, more useful, more beautiful than the raw material that entered the fire. And so, like iron becoming steel, you've become something more than you began, a transformation as miraculous as any achieved in your forge, and with that, close your eyes and drift off to sleep.